Hello and welcome to another episode of Puck Dynasty. It is Friday, January 5th. The World Juniors is over. I'm sad. I'm happy because it was a great tournament. Don't be sad for what you don't have anymore. Be happy for what you got. Devert, how you doing, buddy?
Well, that's quite the optimist approach to that. You took the words right out of my mouth. This is a sad time for me. It's like all that anticipation, these daytime games, and all that. Now it's abruptly over. So, but yeah, it was a good tournament. A lot of fun. It just wrapped up this morning.
That's right. That's right. You know, it's well, I we'll get into this later. I found it to be a little bit of an underwhelming tournament. It's last year was such a tough act to follow. You know, last year had it all. This year, Canada losing out before the medal round.
Yeah, it was a bit of like, for me, whenever I would talk to people about Canada getting knocked out early, I was just, maybe it's a coping mechanism, but I was just say, hey, I'm still riding the high off of the Bedard show last year and that team. And so Canada's team last year was kind of like what USC's team was
minus
this year.
Minus a Bedard.
Just stacked up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah, but just stacked up and down the lineup, and you kind of, although they were tight games, like, man, I can't believe Czechs and Slovaks took us to overtime last year with that team and with Bedard.
Yeah, it goes to show you.
Also, I think like with these tournaments on, it's the big ice. The big ice can really water down the game a bit. You would think it would have more action out there, but it just doesn't lead to as exciting necessarily. But there was some big drama moments along the way. And that how Canada got eliminated, that was pretty gut wrenching. But seems to be kind of like how it is. Remind me a lot of when Fleury shot it off our own D-man in the net. And what was that?
I'd rather lose on a nice goal. If you're gonna call it big drama, like that was so. I found it anticlimactic for a silly little shot like that to be the end of it. But off we go. I didn't write this down. What was our game of the week this week, pal?
You know what? I've been riding off with from last week. Last week was, I think we were just waiting for the quarters and the semis, and then we had like Slovakia against USA.
That sounds right. It wasn't one of the medal games. So should we just forget last week and talk about the gold medal game? Should we skip game of the week altogether since we're just going to talk about the medal games mostly anyways?
Well, what game of the week is there for prospects coming up this week? It's just everyone's kind of getting back from the tourney, and I don't even know if college is back going. Probably next weekend, I guess. College is back going. I didn't even look. We can skip it because I didn't even look up for our game of the week.
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive right into our Around the NHL segment then. There are some fantasy relevant things happening this week. There are just some things we want to talk about. Now that World Juniors is over, NHL's got a lot of our focus. The juniors have a lot of our focus. A lot of trades this week in the Dublin. Oh, hey, some big earth-shattering. Moose Jaw gave up basically like a draft and a half of picks for Savoy. Geeky went to Swift Current. And I'm missing the OHL deal. What was the OHL deal? Owen Beck got traded. He of the 1 point in the World Juniors.
All right.
So a lot going on as we approach the trade deadlines in various leagues. We got, what do you got? Like a month and a bit till the NHL trade deadline?
It's usuly, is it mid-Feb or so? Or is it end of Feb? I don't even know.
It's funny. I always get them mixed up because fantasy deadlines are earlier. I think NHL is March. NHL trade deadline, March 8th. So we got a couple months. Fantasy hockey deadlines are coming up, though. I know all mine are about a month away. Deals trading has picked up in a big way, but we'll get to that. Let's start with some of the bigger fantasy news this week. Miro Heiskenan is out for a while. The coach would not say how long, but he's out for quite a while. So Week to week.
Week to week.
It's not. He said it's not day to day, and he'll be back for the playoffs. So that's not week to week.
Yeah.
We have some advice for you folks in the leagues who are either hurting from a lack of Miro Heiskenan or looking for an opportunity to snag a D-man who's probably going to benefit from this. Let's talk about Thomas Harley Davidson. He of the 9 even strength goals, 17 points. He's a +10 so far. He is going to get ample opportunity to scoop up that ice time for Miro, eh?
Yeah, it was. We were talking about him last week because he's just been on a heater for this whole first half of the season, and I think I can't think of anyone else in Dallas that would take up that ice time on that power play one, and especially he's earned it too. So yeah, if he's available in your league, I would scoop him up, and he's probably a long-term ad because he looks to be their number 3 D-man at least, like leading that second pair.
So. I'm sure he's not available in any keeper leagues, but there might be a few one-year guys out there who can benefit from this. I know as soon as I saw the news, I ran to my app to see if he was available anywhere, and he was not. Not because I got beat, because he wasn't available in the first place, because if a guy scores 9 goals in however many games he's played, 35... he's not going to be available. 34 games. So if he's available in your league, go pick him up. All right, here we go. Let's
go. The moral to the story here is when Ryan sees an offensive defenseman is injured or placed on the IR, he starts to froth at the mouth that he's going to look to scoop up the next guy. It's going to take his job.
Eric Gustafson kept me in the league for all of Adam Fox's duration of his injury. And then he was great this year. He was great.
Such a great offensive defenseman.
As soon as Fox went down, Gustafson basically matched his production. It's great. He was scooped up towards the end of free agency too for cheap. He's like 1.5 mil, maybe even less. Great ad. You think about like what's happening in Arizona with Sean Durzi, where it was just like someone take the reins. If they had signed Eric Gustafson, he might be putting up a 70-point season right now just for lack of competition. Not to slag Durzi. I like Durzi, but Gustafson is, he was a good ad for a while. Keep an eye on that. Let's talk. I want to just chat a little bit with you because I don't think we've done much of this because we hate talking about goalies. Let's talk about what a weird goalie year this is. 0G, whether you're a 0G guy, whether you're a have G guy, it is insane right now. In our one league, the top fantasy point goalies, number 4 is Bobrovsky, who was not, you have him. He wasn't drafted. You picked him up as a free agent. Cam Talbot, I got on waivers, is the number 5 goalie. Number 6 is Joey Daccord. And number 8 is Connor Ingram. Sprinkled in amongst those names, you have Demko a little bit ahead for number 3. You have UC Saros at number 7. And then even this, like Binnington and Jari are 8 and 9 in total points in a fairly standard. Like, what is happening? It's such a strange year for goaltending. Every year there's someone. There's always 1 or 2 guys. But there's like 5 this year where it's just like, you should not be drafting goalies in one-year leagues at all. Just wait for waivers, wait for free agency. Certainly don't be drafting goalies in the top 15. I mean, I was looking at I was chatting with the hacks on Wednesday night about the shutout leaders. You know who the shutout leaders are off the top of your head? This is fresh-ish for me. You know who they are? All right. Tied for 3rd in the league is Stuart Skinner and Jonas Johansson in Tampa.
I was gonna say those guys.
You were gonna
be my guess.
You shitting me right now?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I am shitting you. Yeah.
I wouldn't have said those guys. And number 1, oh geez, I'm having a moment here. Number 1 shutout guy with 4. I know he has 4. I know it's someone unexpected. It is Connor Ingram. 4 shutouts. Tristan Jarry, he's tied with him. 4 shutouts. and Demko's number 3. But then you got like Aiden Hill, Gustafson. There's Swayman, who only gets half the start, so his 2 shutouts prorates to 4. Then you got Daccord, Varlamov, Lindgren. There's Bobrovsky, Jonathan Quick. Like, Hellebuck has 1. He's one of the top 3 goalies. Vasilevsky has 1. He was hurt for a while, but Gorgesev, he's 1. Like, it's a weird year for goaltending. Martin Jones is the starting goalie for the Leafs right now, uncontested. Just a wild year for goalies. And you and I, we're not 1-year guys, but I think that we can wrap our heads around 1-year stuff fairly quickly, not to disparage the 1-year leagues. But at this point, I don't see how you ever do anything other than 0G for the first 10 to 15 rounds of his draft. I just don't. Unless you're in categories, maybe. But even then, if you went with 0 goalies into the start of the season this year and we're just scooping up every goalie as they got hot, you'd have Ingram, Daccord, and Talbot maybe right now. Like, you'd be demolishing category leagues.
It's an interesting trend that's happening around the league. When you look at the goalie position, there's 30 jobs in the world for goalies. That's like the top 30 of a certain profession. And so, of course, it's going to be up and down. And these guys are so close skill-wise that we kind of get caught up in hyping up players, or a guy has a good season and then you think that this is what you got. But these guys are showing that they're all capable of putting up these kind of numbers or these kind of runs. Joey Daccord is spectacular. The run he's been putting on in Seattle. Seattle makes me wonder, because it's like, what's going on? What's going on there? Because he had Martin Jones do it last year too. He took him to the playoffs when Grubauer was out. Joey Daccord's doing it. Why is Grubauer not? Why is he so bad? And it's like, he fell off the face of the earth after he left Colorado.
The only thing I would say to contrast what you said is there's either less than 30 jobs or more than 30 jobs. If you're talking about goaltending as the position it has historically been, where a good goalie is a 50 to 60 game guy, I would argue there's 10 to 15 guys like that in the league. There's so many 1A, 1B situations now that to get a true 55 game goaltender, there's 10 to 15 of those guys. Look at Vegas to start the year. They had Aiden Hill and Thompson. They're just going back and forth, and they were 2 of the leading performers in all league types. So
there's so many teams that want to go that way, right? Like, even LA wanted to go with Phoenix Copley and Talbot, but Talbot just took it and ran with it. And Copley didn't. He didn't back up what he had going on last year in the regular season. One interesting thing with Hellebuck is, and Winnipeg in general, I believe this was about a week ago I read this, but they have a record for the most games in consecutive games with 3 goals or less allowed in NHL
I knew
history.
That he had been on a very long streak for 3 games or less, and it broke last week. He finally let in 4 goals, but
did he let in 4 goals? I was sick last week. I missed that.
I didn't see that it was the longest in history, but I did see that it was like a crazy run. 3.
Yeah, hope I'm not wrong on that one.
All right, here we go. Winnipeg has not allowed more than 3 goals in a game since November 2nd. And over that span, Hellebuck is 15-3-2 with a shutout, a 2 goals against average, and .932 save percentage. It doesn't say anything about being a record, but it did say November 2nd. So that's a
goddamn random Reddit poster screwed me up.
For our listeners, we don't get all of our information from strangers on the internet, but sometimes we do. Anyways, it's a heck of a run. And Hellebuck is one of the few goalies, I would say, that might be worth his draft position year in, year out. He might be the only one. Vasilevsky for the last 5 years. Sorokin lost his job for the first half of this year. He's only now taking it back. If you drafted Sorokin in the first couple rounds, what you'd have to do to get him, you needed to pair him with Varlamov. So, year in, year out, it's Hellebuck. It's got to be Hellebuck.
and Winnipeg's built around him, and he's so steady. He's so good.
All right, enough about goalies. I hate talking about goalies. Let's talk about Brent Clark. Called up to LA. They waived Tobias Bjornfoot rather than sending down Spence because he was waiver free. They're committed to Brent Clark. Brent Clark's going to be there. They have no 7th D-man. They can't call up. I mean, they could call up someone else from Ontario, but I think they're going with Clark. I think he's going to play there. He didn't play last night. He did get into practice. This is so exciting, Debert. As a guy, I certainly hung my hat on. I'm so excited to see the next 2 to 3 months of what Clark and Hughes do on their respective teams. Hughes has a bit of a leg up. When we were having this discussion in the summer, at the end of the summer, the reason I was taking Clark over Hughes, or a big reason, was the presence of Dougie Hamilton. Dougie's gone for the year. Luke Hughes has been awesome since that injury happened. So I do think Hughes is probably the own for the rest of this year. But I am just so excited to see what Brent Clark can do. What this kid's been doing in the AHL and what he's hopefully going to start doing in the NHL is he's just one of the more exciting prospects out there, in my opinion. What do you think?
Absolutely, yeah. 3rd in scoring in the A.
Third in overall scoring.
His rookie year.
Scoring.
Yeah. And what he did in the O last year. He was very steady in the World Juniors as well last year too. Played a role. He's gonna have to play a bit of a role in LA too. I don't think he'll be spoon-fed first line power play time, and then how quickly he can leapfrog to even get that. It would be a waste to not have him on the second power play. But yeah, it's something exciting to watch in LA because he's a real game breaker, and the more offense, the better for LA for sure. They can use it, and it's just they're such a good team, and to be able to add a player of his caliber mid-season, like what a pickup.
The only thing I would say, my stance on playing Brent Clark on power play 1 hasn't changed. You're right. You don't even call him up if he's not going to be on the power play in some way, shape, or form. I do think they're going to start him on PP2, and if he does well, and not even necessarily putting up points, but just doesn't cost chances against and is moving the puck well, which I think he will, I can see them moving him up to PP1 to ease Doughty's load a bit as we go into the playoffs. LA is not in it to win a President's Trophy this year. I don't even they'll probably cruise to home ice in the first round for sure. I think that's all they need. After that, they need to go rested. They need to make sure Kopitar is rested, Doughty is rested. Make sure those guys have their best rest, ready to go, headed into the playoffs. So I can see him playing PP1 just to take a couple minutes off of Doughty every day. But we'll see. I could see it.
Yeah, it's. I just don't see it happening this year. For me, I can see where you're coming from. The logic could be there, but it's just Doughty's such an alpha on that team, and that's been his job forever. And and he's going to be that guy come playoff time. So yeah, if you're going to be resting Doughty and giving him a couple days off here and there, then sure. But while Doughty's in the lineup, I foresee him being. But he'll get starts on power play too, and so it's not necessarily if Doughty was just out and there was a delayed call, and things will move around a bit. So it gives them some flexibility to have another offensive defenseman.
For sure, and I'm not saying they're going to rest Doughty. What I'm saying is just bring his ice down. He is leading the NHL in ice time this year, 26 minutes a game. He's 34. I just think, why? So number 2 in ice time is Dobson. Dobson is young. I can see him maintaining that. I just think, you want Doughty, in my opinion, I would have him playing closer to 23 or 24 minutes a night for the last month or 2 of the year. Once they're locked in and ready to go. have him fresh. And then in the playoffs, 32 minutes a night, go. I just think, Kopitar, we saw it last year. We've had this discussion. Kopitar looked tired every game. He looked more and more tired in the playoffs last week. He was still effective, but he slowed down. Kopitar is older than Doughty and has more miles, but my take is just ease up on Doughty's ice time a little bit. Don't rest him for a whole game. I'm not saying I don't want to see the NBA. I just think get his minutes down to 22, 23 minutes a night, and then set him loose in the playoffs. Anyways, Brant Clark, I'm excited. Ryan Hartman, Cole Perfetti, following this?
A bit. I find it a bit humorous, a bit, just kind of like, I don't know what a guy like Hartman, like, he's obviously not out there to make any friends, but to stick a guy in the face and then tell the guy that you did it because they went after Kaprizov.
Oh, no. I thought maybe I misunderstood this situation. He told him he was going to do it before he did it. It wasn't after the fact that he did it and then said I did it on purpose. He told him he was doing it ahead of time.
Oh, well, then I missed it. Then, yeah. I kind of just went over. Was like, I don't need drama. I hate all this drama in the league. It gets brought up, but well, that's even funnier. Saying you're gonna stick a guy and then you know what? Well, the funny thing about all that is that none of that footage can be used.
Oh, you know what? I might be wrong.
That's
I might have just read that wrong. What this says is Hartman told him the high stick was intentional and was caught doing it. Yeah. Okay. So I think it's what you said after the fact. He told him. Yeah.
Okay. That would be something, calling that you're going to stick someone in the face. That's like junior B stuff right there.
He comes multiple times and asks me if I did it on purpose, and finally I said I won't say it wasn't on purpose. I mean, it looked on purpose. It didn't. That was the old butt end of the stick to the mouth in the playoffs. I agree. It's a lot of drama. It's funny because it all stems from a play that was innocuous enough. If Kaprizov hadn't been hurt, no one even would have looked at that cross check, and we've got this. Two irate fan bases. I think it's pretty funny. The Vancouver Canucks.
But they curbed it, right? Like, it should have been put to bed. Dylan fought later, and then it was Lowry and Maroon fought.
Mm-hmm.
They said they need to calm things
weird
down.
That it kept going.
He had to do it. He felt compelled. I have to stick someone in the face.
This kid who had nothing to do with it. Yeah, I still like the old. Someone's gonna have to fight. Do that. The refs lose control. Just have a fight. Enough's enough.
That's the beautiful thing of hockey.
Game.
It really is. It's just, you've done my team wrong, so send your toughest soldier and let's go.
Like back in the Roman days, right? All right, here's our guy. Who's your guy? Speaking of the beautiful game, the Canucks PDO is finally catching up to them. This team was lights out, insane for the first few months of the year. I hope some of you managed to sell high. Hronek has gone cold. Kuzmenko doesn't play every game anymore. Pettersson has come back down to normal Pettersson levels, which are still, MVP caliber, but certainly not the 150 point or 160 point pace he was at. Any surprise there, Diebert, that it's caught up with these guys so aggressively? I mean, they're still winning some games, but
wow, how long did you think they were going to have the top 3 scorers in the league for? It was a great ride while it lasted. And hey, I'm sure Canucks fans are more than happy with where they're sitting right now. They just had World Juniors MVP. Their team's rolling. They're going to be in the playoffs this year. Like, Canucks fans are happy. No, I'm not surprised. I was surprised at the pace that everyone was putting up there, including Hughes. Pettersson didn't surprise me because of the contract year. JT Miller, he continues to surprise me. He's better than I thought he was. But yeah, them coming back down, but having a point per game defenseman and one of the top goal scorers and
top goalies,
one of the top goalies and like two centers that are well over a point per game. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and they've got
having a great year
out the wazoo. So there's nothing. I think that team is just short. Maybe one more impact D-man, especially if they're running Hronek and Hughes together. But they can get to the playoffs like this. They're going to be just fine.
It might be a year that we'll be talking about deadline stuff later, but it might be a year for the Canucks to make a splash.
There's a lot of D-men available out there right now. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe. Some interesting stuff to me that's been happening is guys getting up to speed after missing camp really fast. And I'm going to point to one of my favorite young players in the league, Jack Quinn, and then Patrick Kane coming off that surgery. No one's ever come back from that surgery. And not only has he come back, he's been one of Detroit's best offensive players. What's going on with these guys just taking a week of practice and then lighten it up?
Well, Jack Quinn is surprising that shot is his is an Achilles injury.
I'm saying
right?
More for the guys who missed camp.
Yeah.
I
know. I'm just I for my mind there for a second I thought he had a shoulder injury.
No,
but,
thank goodness.
I just remembered it was Achilles. Yeah. He previously had a shoulder injury, I believe, or something like that. But yeah, Jack Quinn looks great. That shot looks lethal. Looks better than ever. Pacing at like a 40-some goal pace.
I mean, we're only 5 games in, but that's a guy. He's you might not notice Quinn for the whole game, and suddenly he scores.
Yeah, he's legit. Buffalo needs to figure out a way to carve to get him premier ice time, and Patrick Kane. The guy's just like one of the best of his generation, you could say, or eras, or whatever you want to call it. And he just needed to fix his hip. And so that surgery, the more I've heard about it and thought about it, and looked at the guys that have actually had that surgery, they were all lumbering two-way bigger guys that used their body a lot. They weren't quicker, smaller players. So it probably is an advantage to Kane that he moves around the ice effortlessly without using as much power as those guys. And but the hands look great. That shootout winner he had last night, the night before in LA. And it's fun to watch. It's nice to see a guy like Kane be able to get back out there and succeed, and hopefully he can take Detroit to the playoffs this year.
It's interesting to me that Detroit signs Kane and immediately stumbles, and it's not because it's not because he's not producing. I think he's been a fairly consistent minus player, which is not entirely surprising, but they're stumbling a bit. Lyon had a big game last night, so that's nice. Their goaltending has been a mess, but Lyon helped Florida last year. He might be the guy to help them this year. I know I've picked him up in 2 leagues now, so keeping an eye on that guy. The Canes, man. I was just looking. Svechnikov and Aho combined for 6 points tonight, 1 goal, 5 assists. They came on strong. Kochetev is rolling now.
Yeah.
They got to be a top 2 team in the East if you're picking who's going to make it to the Cup. Hey.
Oh, the East. Yeah. What do you got? You got Rangers, Bruins again, Leafs, Carolina.
Don't you have to win more than 2 rounds to make it out of the?
That was the greatest.
For those who didn't see it, there was Steve Dangle.
Oh my god.
On his show, the guy told him, "Yeah, we all know the Leafs haven't ever won 3 rounds, but did you know they've never won 2 rounds? The last time the Leafs won the Cup, it was it a 2-round play? No, how'd that go?
Leafs have never won 3 rounds in the playoffs. Yeah. So in 67, when they won the cup, it was a 4-team playoff.
Wild. So
they've never won 3 rounds in the playoffs in the history of the franchise. An original 6 team has never won.
As crazy
more
as that is, the thing that's even crazier to me is
insane.
that I don't know that we knew that until a week ago. Like,
no, nobody did.
And
everyone assumed that 67 was, before that, whatever. But everyone talks about 67. They assume, legit 4-round cup final win. But no one knew that 67 was a 4-team playoff. That was expansion year, wasn't it? Is that why it was only 14?
That doesn't apply to fantasy hockey. I was having a discussion today about what's changed in the expansion draft, and I couldn't remember. Some of this is dad brain, but I couldn't remember who the last expansion team was before Vegas. I was like, was it Florida? I think it was Florida. I didn't dive in, but that's where my brain is.
No. It's like Columbus, Minnesota.
That was after Florida?
Yeah, Florida was like 90.
Yeah, I remember.
Oh,
geez, the Beezer Cup run, the original Rats. I couldn't for the life. Anyways, like I said, I couldn't for the life of me remember the order of expansion.
Because Columbus drafted Nash early, and Minnesota drafted Gaborik.
There you go. So you should have been there in that conversation, buddy. We don't need to crap on the Flames, but they are finding their way back to mediocrity. Whatever. I love that. I'm so happy.
I love how your version of crapping on them is them on a 3-game winning streak. You're just like laughing. Ha ha ha. You guys refuse to suck.
I love it. I love seeing it. It's in fairness, I actually adored the year we beat them in the playoffs for obvious reasons. I like it when they're both good, but I also think that an organization needs to know when to be bad, and Calgary does not. They don't know. They don't have a clue. You can talk about Mac for a bit. Why not?
Oh, huge. Mac is on fire. So, over the last month, they've played 14 games. In those 14 games, he's putting up McDavid numbers. He's got 13 goals, 17 assists, 30 points. Last 2 games, Colorado's won 5-4, both games in overtime. Guess who's got both overtime goals?
Oh,
Mac. No, but that's another guy that's heating up too. Johnny's
11 and 11.
Johnny's on fire. He's looking
12 and 11.
Yeah, post interview yesterday, he was all smiles and looks like he's got his swagger back a bit. So, huge week for Mac. Great if you're a fantasy owner. The guy's he's having his best career year by far, and he's actually playing like I said, McDavid levels.
Time in sports. Come on, put up 150 in a year. Talk to me about McDavid. Although I think Mac was.
Yeah, McDavid did it once, right? So it's
like that once.
Well, no, I'm just like, so he's pacing for like 130.
We'll see how it goes. We'll see how healthy he stays. Yeah. That's always the concern with Mac.
Yeah, he'll miss a bit of time sometime here, and he's not getting the All-Star break either. But the thing with the Avs, though, being an Avs guy, is that the way they're winning hockey games is just not sustainable. And so it's exciting. Games are fun to watch, great comebacks, but their goaltending, like, it's so funny because like Georgiev can look so weak and then make huge saves at the end of the game, and you're just like, and like all's forgiven. But yeah, we're just giving up too many goals, and so it doesn't bode well. I remember when Colorado won the cup, that team was like puck possession monsters, shots for versus against. They were a huge advantage, and they would just stymie. So it's like there's something going on with that blue line for a team that has, one of the best blue lines when they won the cup there.
Nothing's changed.
And not much has changed. Yeah. So it's like there's something leaky going on there, but whatever, are we top in the division?
I don't know about you. I'm not a guy who follows the standings until February.
Yeah, Winnipeg's right with us, but yeah, it's
you guys looking good.
okay.
We're gonna skip the trade deadline talk today because we're already 35 minutes in, and I just realized we're still a month away. Yeah, it's a little premature. There's a lot of guys keep dying, but we're gonna talk about that another time. Let's go. 35 minutes in. Let's talk about the World Juniors. Quite a final today. Quite a final 2 games. I unfortunately had to miss the third of the bronze, and I just assumed Finland won because I walked away at 5-3. What a third period Yuri Kulich had, the team had. Yeah.
So I was at work during that. I had the game on while working, and I had to go help a client for 5 minutes or so, and it was 5-4.
It was 5-3 going into
5-4. Yep. 5-3 going into the third. I saw Kulich scored, and it was 5-4, and I came back, and it was
8-5. Wild,
8-5,
wild
whatever
finish.
it was. Yeah. I was like, well, there's a couple empty netters in there.
The 2 fastest in history.
Boom, 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 boom.
2 seconds apart.
Yeah. 2 fastest
2 seconds apart. Yeah. The fastest in World Juniors history, and it tied with the NHL from like 1963, something like that. So, yeah, wild finish. Kulich looked good.
For them.
This Betcher guy looked good. Nice to see Kulich come out and make a mark on that. I thought Haminaho was really good. We'll get to that later. Anyways, that was great. And what an atmosphere for the gold. Man, those Swedish fans, you and I talked about being at this tournament, I think 2 or 3 years ago, or the next one in Sweden. Boy, did we ever miss out. Those fans were so fun. I'm in a group chat, and one guy was complaining that he couldn't hear the announcers, and I said, who cares? Like, this atmosphere is amazing.
All those cute Swedish girls there too. Like, come on, what a blown opportunity.
Well, you missed out on those cute Swedish girls. I got a cute Canadian girl here, but
that's true.
That sad one. I don't remember what game it was. They kept showing it.
Yeah, it's like, oh, poor honey. Anyways, atmosphere is great. I love it. I love how they gave them. They were still cheering on their team even though they were down 6-2. There's no death threats going out to teenagers or anything like that, like coming from the Canada fans.
What did you think about the U.S. players going after the crowd the whole game?
Oh, it's so U.S. World Juniors / NTDS, whatever, the National Development Team. Like they're just such totally. Frat boys out there, like frat boys, douchebags, and it's like they have to live up to this image. Like the blowing the kisses to the fans.
I read that he was actually blowing a kiss to a large group of American fans. That was the Leonard goal.
Sure. Sure.
But
they
were they were not holding back for sure. I mean, did you see what Augustine was doing?
Who blows a kiss to your fans?
Celebrities do that stuff all. Anyways, Augustine was giving it to the fans when they were sorting out those penalties in the third from that nonsense with Hudson and Johansson. It was something else to watch. I love the bad boy thing, and I love that so many of those players are coming back next year when they'll probably win it again. But we'll talk about that next year.
It's with the whole bad boy thing, like, they're known to be like that when they lose. Like when they lose, like I was expecting if they would ended up not being able to come back against the Finns, it was going to be like hissy fit city for Team US. But to do it with a win, I'm surprised the coach wouldn't be like, come on, let's have a little class here. But
certainly it appears he did not do that.
Leadership, yeah. Hey, if you don't like it, don't let him score.
Yeah.
That old adage. But a little flavor for international hockey. Well, there was did you see there was a bit of thing between Lekkerimäki and Cutter in the
I
handshake
missed
line.
the handshake line and the presentation of the players at the tournament.
Yeah, I only caught a clip of it here just before the show, and apparently Cutter said something to Lekkerimäki that he did not like. He walked by him, took a step back, and he continued to talk to him. Like he stopped the line in its tracks to say something. So maybe I don't know what it could have been. Like the only thing like you could think of would be that Cutter didn't like that Lekkerimäki got MVP of the tournament or something.
That was a
but
bit,
that's just grasping.
That was a bit of a
making that up.
Pick,
but
to be fair.
I wouldn't say Cutter was MVP of the tournament. Like I would maybe venture off more into like
Coolidge is probably where I would have gone with that.
MVP.
He helped his team win a medal more than Lekkerimäki did. Like Lekkerimäki's team lost the silver. Coolidge's team won the bronze largely. And part of him, he led the tournament in scoring. Right. Cutter, we'll get to that. Anyways, that's interesting. I'm gonna have to dig into that because I didn't see any of that. We are going to dive into our top 10 World Junior Fantasy prospects at the end of the show. For now, let's talk a little bit. I don't think we need to talk about the gold medal game specifically. I want to talk on a fantasy level about guys who surprised, guys who were kind of what we thought they'd be, and then the biggest disappointments of the tournament. I'm going to lead off with the guy he's a fun player to watch. He's the captain of team Hate Me. It's Isaac Howard. Like from the day that kid got drafted, he's just been he's like a wrestler with this shtick. You know who he reminds me of is Colby Covington.
Hey, there we go. I like it.
But he had himself a heck of a tournament.
And he seems heck of a tournament. Very opportunistic, and he buried his chances. And yeah. The speed was good. Hands looked good. Worked well with teammates. I think he'll fit in well with Tampa.
I agree.
If they hang on to
I
him.
agree. His move to Michigan State has been terrific. So last year he was drafted and then went to Minnesota, which was a team that was known for not being a high-scoring team. And he put up 17 points in 35 games, which was a bit of a disappointment for a first-rounder. This year, he's 20 points in 18 games. His stock was slowly rising for me before the tournament. He's the guy who now I've got all kinds of time for if someone comes dangling Isaac Howard. Especially Tampa needs some cheap talent over the next few years if they're going to keep this run going, which they probably will for another few more years. He's probably, let me look at my list here. He's probably the biggest surprise of the tournament for me as far as I didn't see him being much more than a fourth liner, and I think he was on the top line by the end of the tournament. So,
well, and even because he was stapled to it was him, Brindley, and Nazar early in the tourney.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought he was third line.
Was he with Nazar Brindley? Yeah, he might have been.
I thought that was the line.
He was
but yeah, like that line just that line didn't miss. Like that line carried him through a few games. And then I found it funny that I had to look up the stats quickly because I know he'd been on the score sheet, but in the gold medal game where he like threw the monkey off his back and threw it into the stands, and like
6 goals,
you got 5 goals this tournament. Well, that was his 6th goal. Yeah, you have 5 goals. It's like, what monkey do you have on your back? I don't understand. But again, just American tomfoolery out there. So, but yeah, great tournament. Great
I think that
wheels,
was America's monkey.
Good overall skill
I don't
set.
think that was Howard's monkey. I think that they felt like they needed to win this tournament. That was because I agree. Okay. Isaac Howard did not have a monkey on his back at all, and like at no point this year, really, unless it was like.
And he wasn't the first one.
Yeah, no, there were a couple. There were a couple guys, so I think that was it.
Wow, they're really well. They kept talking on the broadcast of like this is a rematch and payback for the under 18 tournament. And then I'm like, U.S. won under 18 last year, but they're still salty about losing it 2 years previous when Lekkerimäki went Globetrotter and put up 2 points a game and won MVP there too.
Maybe that's what Cutter said. Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. I don't want to talk about Howard anymore with his white suit and the best dressed guy at the draft. Gavin Brindley would be next on my list of guys who really, 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 really increased their stock in this tournament. He was everywhere. He was fifth in scoring. He had 10 points in 7 games, 6 goals, 4 assists. He, to me, might have been, I don't want to overstep here, he might have been the most consistent forward in the tournament. I'd say him and Perreault are probably the two guys who game in game. There wasn't a single game, and I watched all the U.S. games. There wasn't a single game where I didn't think that those guys were noticeable in almost every shift.
Yeah, he had. And the funny thing is these are the kinds of guys that usually tend to struggle a bit in these tournaments. You know, first year after the draft, and they're coming in higher offensive players, and but the way what the U.S. is doing with this, not to get away from Brindley too much, but just with this under 18 team, only bringing college guys in, all that. They're really building up the NCAA as being like, hey, if you want to ride with us, you gotta go along. And so guys that go against the grain, and it's working. Like you can see the chemistry there. And so like, what I'm getting at is that like you can see guys like Brindley and Perreault and that like Boston College line and like all that, like all this chemistry is so huge for this tournament. You know, granted they're all massively skilled, but yeah, it was crazy watching. If you look at their stat lines across the board, each line had a 10-point player in it. Like their top 3 lines each had a 10-point player in it, which is amazing. They didn't play together.
Screwing around for sure. Yeti Nyman, I was really impressed with for the Finns. I also liked Aminaho a lot, and then I knew I was going to blank on this. Konsta Helenius, I thought was really good. If Finland was a deeper team, he would have put a more statistical impressiveness. But he was just very noticeable out there, pushing for the top 5, I think, in this draft.
Yeah, he as the tournament went on, especially, but I felt like his zone entries were great. You could see the skill, you could see the IQ. He deferred a lot, and there wasn't as much skill to defer.
Yeah, he was creating plays that weren't finished.
Just because he is the young kid. Yeah. So give him a year, and he'll be a little bit more of like you had talked about. I think it was on the hacks that like one of the Canada's problems was no one knew who was shoot. The guy on the line should shoot, and so he kind of suffered from that too, where it was just kind of like, no, I don't want to be that guy. I'm not
totally.
I haven't earned that.
It's a weird thing that you see in these tournaments where if you aren't on a team or on a line where you have familiarity, they all defer to each other, you know, and you see those. I mean, there was a play today, actually. It was just before Lekkerimäki scored on that rifle where, and this is a bad example for what I'm talking about, but he got fed a pass right in the slot in the shooting position, and he passed it off to Osland. And I was like, what? What do you? I think actually they even said on the broadcast he scored a few seconds later, and they're like, Lekkerimäki will know when it's time for him to shoot, but it was like, and he does. Canada had that a lot. There were dozens of scoring chances where they didn't even shoot, where they were in a prime scoring position and they did not even shoot. Finland had less than that, but still a lot for sure. But liked his game. My favorite player that I had not seen a lot of, Zeev Byam. This guy is like, what a tournament this kid had. I thought, and we'll talk more about this, I thought he was America's most impressive defender. You know, like he ended with 3 goals, 2 assists in 7 games. Hudson won the other tourney with 6 assists, and I just thought Zeev was far more impressive out there. His breakout passes are unreal. His vision is fantastic. If this kid can defend at an NHL level, he is in the conversation for me as one of those top 5-10 fantasy prospect D-men that I'm going to be watching for the next 3 years.
Yeah, he was. You were talking about him early in the tourney and
pre-tourney
for as much call. Pre-tourney. Yes, sorry. I should have prefaced that. I was saying pre-tourney. Hey, I even used it in a sentence.
I actually used your version of
I had
it
to think
today.
I had to actually.
It was
think,
intentional.
Did you?
I've told the story a few times. Yeah,
Did you
I
chuckle
think I'm
to yourself? Okay. Yeah. It's hilarious. Yeah. But yeah, the thing I've noticed a lot with him, very heads up player. You would think with him being a draft eligible that's smashing NCAA at a point per game, that he would be a small offensive defenseman. He is not. He is not. No, he's got size to him. He's got some moxie to his game. Reminds me a bit of like Devon in Colorado. Good heads up play, skates upright, makes the right pass, makes the right move, will chip in with some quite decent offensive numbers, and just steady two-way kind of.
I think he has more upside than that. But this,
I wouldn't discount Taves though, because he's just stuck behind Makar. But if you look at where he's at for points and defensemen,
yeah, he's up there
over the
for
last
sure. That's fair.
4 or 5 years. He's like top 10 defenseman scoring in the last 4 or 5 years. So it's I don't mean that as I mean that as a compliment to both Taves and Buriam.
Zaboom.
We'll get the proper Zaboom. I like it. But yeah, no, he had a great tourney. It'll be great to watch him next year at the tourney, to see him be the guy, and like that's when you'll really know what you got. But yeah, you might be onto something with him being a top 5 pick coming up in this draft for fantasy.
For fantasy, I maintain he's the first D-man off the board, pending where he goes, and that's what I wanted to say was, if he goes to the right team, i.e., not Columbus, scooping up Matejchuk last year.
He looked great in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, Korchinski, I'd like to see him in Arizona, to be honest. I mean, he's not. I don't think he'll fall to Arizona. He wasn't being talked about as necessarily a top 10 pick before this tournament. I think he will be now, and I will take full credit for that. His agent should call me. The only other D-man that I actually thought maybe was game in, game out better than him was Seamus Casey. This kid had an insane tournament. I knew he was good. Like, his advanced stats in college are stupid. Like, he's undersized. He's 5'10". But his advanced stats at Michigan are like off the charts. He's 23 points in 18 games there. He had 29 and 37 last year behind Luke Hughes. So, like, this is a guy who's been doing it in the juniors. I'm not surprised he was as good as he was in this tournament. But to piggyback off of a conversation you and I have been having for a few months, the pecking order in New Jersey is embarrassing. It's embarrassing for good offensive minutes. So let's say currently Dougie Hamilton's at the top. Luke Hughes is beneath that. You got Nemec, who had a big game today. He had a goal and assist. He's very good and probably is going to get shafted on ice time he should be getting over the next 3 years in Jersey. And then you've got Seamus Casey. Like, please, someone at the deadline, pick this kid up if you can't get Nemec, because he could easily be one of your top 2 offensive D-men on your team. And he's a two-way as much as a 5'10" guy can be. He's a pit bull out there.
Yeah, he's gonna. Well, he'll get some AHL minutes coming up, and this year he'll probably. Well, it depends what happens if he gets out of college early enough to play a little bit this year. It's so hard to gauge a guy like that, right? Like, he's been in the shadow for so long. And just with that opportunity or the lack of opportunity, it's just, and New Jersey's going to be sitting there and be like, teams are going to be asking about him. It's like, no. He's better than what you're offering in a trade. But the other team's going to be like, yeah, but you're not going to be using him. So he's kind of useless.
If you're making a trade with Jersey, though, they've always got that that forward you like so much that they could dangle an agent. That's he scored tonight, who I'm talking about.
Speaking of guys who scored. Foot. Yeah.
There's been a running joke with Devon and I for 2 years? 3? Is it 3 years you've been dangling this useless piece of prospect?
His contract's up this year. I don't know what to do quite yet.
Well,
so
I'd probably say you could just let him go.
It's been weird, like who cares about Nolan Foote, but he's been on the IR. I must have bought him up. He's been on the IR all season. No, he's in my farm team. He's been on the IR all season and there hasn't been a word said, undisclosed injury all season. He's been on injured reserve. But anyways, yeah, Jersey's got a lot going on. They gotta make a move here. They got a couple years left before. They got a big long window, but they need to make the playoffs here, and they got to start making some noise. So I would say they will be dangling one of Casey or Nemec,
assuming that they're going to go on their run this year.
Now, if Casey turns into like this really dependable two-way offensive threat, it's just too much undersized with both him and Hughes. I was going to say you could maybe trade Nemec for a bigger package, but that's just too nice to have.
Nemec brings something that the other players don't, for sure.
Yeah.
Next guy. Let's talk about this. Otto.
He is a one player that is impossible not to like. The guy has this unreal engine. He competes. He's a goal scorer. He seems to be a good leader, likable, good interview. St. Louis got an absolute gem.
They got a couple gems in this tournament. Jimmy Snuggerud looked, that rocket off the crossbar was just
Snuggerud. Dvorsky, Delver,
St. Louis Blues fans who were spoiled in this tournament. Another guy we really liked was Theo Lindstein. So I saw a stat today. I'm going to pull it up. He, as far as cumulative game score leaders, Theo Lindstein was second behind Noah Ostlund. Now, cumulative game score is not something I'm familiar with, but this is an EP Rinkside thing, and I like the work they do. And
cumulative, what does that mean?
Cumulative is like the total impact plays that they had in a game, and I don't know what that's based off of, but I'll tell you the list. Everyone except for one guy on the list, because I'm going to steal him in our league. It was Ostlund, Lindstein, Nazar, Cutter, Macklin, Snug, Kulich, Lekermecki, and McGroarty. It's hard to disagree that those were probably the 9 most impactful players of the tournament. Brindley is missing there, but these are all the ice time leaders, and then the guys who stood out.
Well, it's certainly interesting. Who is he a draft pick
Vegas.
of? I don't even know. Vegas. Yeah, so, of course. Vegas.
Really liked him.
Fit in nice.
Nazar, we talked about. He was good. Macklin, we don't need to talk about because he was. Okay, we can talk about it a bit. Did he meet or exceed your expectations in this tournament?
With the benefit of hindsight of losing out early, actually, I shouldn't even say that. It doesn't matter. He did exceed it. He had a great tournament. He did score most, if not all, of his points against subpar teams, too. So he did beat up on the weaker teams in the tournament, which everyone does. Everyone does in this tournament, so you can't But when the going got tough, and it's not without trying. Like he had good games in those. He was the best player night in, night out.
Well,
for
you
Canada,
said to
so,
me, I think 2 games in, you said, I can't believe I didn't pick him as player as the forward of the tournament. So I would say that equals exceeding the expectations. We kind of talked about this. I think we talked about this. If Canada wasn't such a this year, like he had something like 8 points and the next leading Canadian had 4. If they could have had any kind of chemistry on any of those lines, and if he got on that line, he would have put up better numbers. Like Canada just couldn't score to save their life in this tournament. So I was impressed. The fact alone that he was the best Canadian player night in, night out exceeded my expectations. The end. So, yeah we like him. We had talked a little bit about the comparison to Fantilli, based purely, and it's a silly thing to do, but based on their World Juniors, I think Celebrini is more exciting of a prospect to own than Fantilli at this point. So good for him. Although Fantilli is heating up this year.
Do you think? Yeah, he's gonna hit 60 points in the season. No problem.
Yeah, he's only 2 points. He's only like 2 points behind Bedard this month. Bedard got hurt today. Hey, not to totally veer.
Yeah, he got smushed in the mouth. I'm surprised. It didn't look. Yeah, well, he got a shoulder.
No, he didn't.
Did he come back?
He was going to miss the rest of the game.
Okay.
Anyways, sidetrack. And then the other guy I really liked was Hamina. He's the guy I've been chasing. He was one of our picks of the week a while back, like in one of our first shows.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't mess around with that shit. If I tell you to look at a guy, you should look at a guy. It's funny.
And I'm gonna keep saying it.
Well, you're darn right I am. Listen, when you're as right as I've been about guys like Bouchard and Talbot, you go ahead, you toot your own horn, because no one else is going to do it for you. I like this kid a lot. I like him in Jersey. I think he's going to be there. The depth that New Jersey has coming on their D, and then they've got, oh man, it's 10 o'clock on a Friday. Who's the Russian I've been talking about for years? Yeah, Arseny. Like the depth that Jersey has coming in waves, like year after year, is just, it's so exciting. This year they are underperforming, but like this is a team that just, they are set up for a very long time, and Hamina is a part of that. Some guys we'd like to talk about who were kind of exactly what we thought they would be. This is a shorter list, thankfully, because it's 10 o'clock. Yuri Kulich, you and I talked about this. I love
leading scorer.
I'm not surprised. Like the two top guys on this list. Oh, I didn't actually even put them on this list. Kulich and Cutter, I expected to lead the way. I thought Cutter would score more goals than he did, but I expected him to be leading the tournament in points. Kulich, I expected him to lead the tournament in goals. What I didn't love, and I was hoping to see more from Kulich, was shot creation and dominating shifts. I'm not sure he's that player. He's a one-shot guy. He's definitely a power play weapon. But there were a couple shifts at the end of the Canada game where, I don't remember which game it was. He had 2 shots in the last minute. And they weren't good shots. And he didn't create much there. And like, I would like to see more ability from him as far as one-on-one, or even just like, if he's in his spot, his office over across from Ovi's office, he's money, and we know he's money, and he's got a career in the NHL as that guy. I'd like to see something outside of that circle from him.
And I think you get that in the AHL. I think because a lot of his goals isn't just standing there just teeing up one-timers like he was doing in a few games, which became
he does
a bit
that
redundant.
And he scores on the break.
Yeah.
Like he scores on odd man rushes a lot in the AHL. I don't see a ton of him like cutting to the middle and getting a sneaky shot on net. I don't see a lot of that. I do see a little. I was hoping against this, I'll call it a downgrade in competition, that we would see a little bit of like, hey guys, I can also, like, I didn't see that.
Well, you didn't actually, now that you mention it, I think like you didn't see him like mucking it 3 feet from the goal and stuff like that. Like he's a fairly perimeter guy.
Yeah.
You know, it works for him now. He's gonna have to learn it at the next level. But shit, like 19-year-old leading World Juniors.
It's a little finicky. Same with Cutter.
Goals,
like Cutter had a great tournament. He was pretty noticeable out there. I think
he did a lot of his points were like just being like winning a face-off. Like on the power play, you know, like it was just like he's
right things at the right places for sure.
So he wasn't like creating as much as like the leading scorer, like top forward in the tournament, but still a good tournament. I'm not gonna
the other guys who mostly were what we thought they'd be was the USNTDP line. Aside from Perot, surprised me. I thought that he was.
Yeah,
he's looking like a steal.
He's a threat.
Smith, I was a little, dare say, underwhelmed with Smith, only because I had him in the same tier as the 4 guys who got drafted ahead of him this year. No, sorry, the 3 guys who got drafted ahead of him this year. I thought him, Carlson, Fantilli were all probably long-term, somewhat interchangeable players. I'm not sure I feel that way anymore. I mean, it's a short tournament. I wanted to see a little bit more out of him. Leonard is exactly what I thought he was, which is an awesome guy who's super fun to watch. He's Tom Wilson on steroids, but he's probably capping out as an 80-point guy in the AHL. I think we've discussed in the past. That's what I saw in this tournament.
He needs some skill to play with. So Washington's got some work to do to. Yeah, but he's a great complimentary player for there. He's such a job.
Well, he's like you said, frat boys. Yeah,
like he's like I was watching a thing on Boston College, Chicklets University. They do a thing where they go and travel around to each college hockey town. And they go and like do a tour of the dressing room, and like Will Smith took him around Boston College, and there was a thing of like Leonard was there, and the guy's fucking jacked too. Like the guy's he's just a missile, and so it's that line Smith I agree with, and that's what I've watched when I've watched Boston College play this year. Where
he leaves like, you wanting more.
Okay, I'm waiting for it, and then it's like, and then it's there, and then he does something crazy. You know, and it's like, oh, okay. You know, like that slap pass goal to Perot.
The Will
today.
Smith slap?
Yeah, the Will Smith slap. It's we'll see. I reckon that all 3 should probably do another year in college next year. I don't know if it'll benefit them because they're all going to play together again. So it's these guys need to learn how to play with other players other than these.
If
3.
one of them isn't going to play in college next year, who is it?
Perot will be back.
I think it's Leonard.
Maybe Leonard.
I think Leonard would benefit greatly from going another level up now. I think, like we saw it in his first game in college. He put a 22-year-old on his ass. So
yeah. I could see, and I only say that initially just because I think Washington will have a need for him quicker than San Jose does for
that too.
For
I think Leonard plays a big boy game, and I think he knows how to do what he's doing. And I don't look at Leonard and see any areas that need development. I look at Leonard, I'm like, he's good. You know, Smith, there's a lot I see where I'm like, Perot, I mean, he had a heck of a tournament. Perot I'd say Smith of the 3 is probably the one that needs the most development time. Perot really seems.
Smith has developed
for sure.
This year, though.
From the first game of the college season.
He's a lot more. Yeah. Yeah, he's improved a lot throughout the season. So it's I think we're holding him in
Yes.
such high regard for
Yes.
what his potential is that yeah, for him to reach it, he needs a bit of tough love, I think. And so he's got some hard coaching and but yeah, they got second half of the college season. I think this line coming back from World Juniors is just going to torch the NCAA coming up here. So it's
look out.
Yeah.
Next on our list, let's talk. In my opinion, Lekkermäki was what we thought he was. Maybe his shot's a little more elite than we thought, but he was expected by us to lead Sweden. He did.
The accuracy. If that accuracy can improve a bit,
40 goals,
man,
40 goal guy.
That is a rocket. But like that happened. It was the semis. Yeah, he scored a rocket, and then the next game, Snugger scored the ping rocket one time or two. And
it was fun watching those two go back and forth.
Yeah, we were treated to some big shooters there.
Doing here.
And you wonder why goalies are having a tough time in the NHL. Look at what's coming, man. Like it's a great time to be
a prospect watcher.
This game is gonna we're hitting like pretty soon. It'll be like there'll be two guys and 140 points in a season. You know, we'll be having like 100 point scorers. Like it's the tide has turned from goalies.
You think 100 point scorers is coming?
I don't know. I don't even know how many there were last year. I just threw a number out there, but that's probably way off. Like what would there be? Like how many do you think?
Real quick.
How many would you say would be like? Let's say the game keeps growing. How many 100-point scorers do you think?
By 10 years from now? You want to just say 10 years? That's a good timeline for say 5 years. I think in 5 years, 15 to 20 is probably. I mean, the game always changes. You know, we might see another. Remember when they came out of the lockout and it was like 15 penalties per 15 power plays a game? I'd like to see the NHL go back to that style of hockey. But the way we're going, 15 is probably a good number for me.
Last year there was, including 99-point guys,
13.
There was 13.
How many 99-point guys were there? 2?
There was 2. Jack Hughes and Mitchell Marner.
So 6. So there were 6. So I'm calling 2.5 times that over the next 5 years. Yeah, I feel comfortable with that. I'll save that clip too. Dalibor Dvorsky had the tournament we thought he was going to have. I've been talking to another GM about Rutger McGroarty a lot this tournament. He was exactly the player I thought he was. He's a guy who leads, and a lot of what he does isn't going to show up on the score sheet. You know, and I would use that perfect screen he had on the Gauthier winner as an example. This is a guy who knows how to help his team win. He had that huge hit today. Like, he's going to be a fan favorite in Winnipeg. I don't think I like him as more than a 65 to 70 point player, though.
Probably, yeah. He would be your like Ryan Callahan type of guy, you know, like true leader, guy that like everyone looks to, makes the big hit, block shot, all that. Just doesn't quite have the offensive skill set to be.
He's a 10 foot from the net guy. 10 foot from the net guy. Yeah, and those guys don't clear 70 points. You know, I mean, Chris Kreider would be an example. But if you can't score from far away, it limits. So Kreider, I would say, is his absolute ceiling, and I don't see him hitting peak Kreider levels. But he was good. And then the other guy, just because we talked a little bit about him in a bad way, Geeky, I thought was exactly the player that I've thought he is all along, which is a guy I don't have time for in our top 50 prospects. I don't have time for him as a guy I want to chase in fantasy. He's a Phoenix prospect. which inhibits his upside to me. He's behind Cooley forever. And he was really noticeable in the pre-tournament games. And then I just thought it just dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. Quite a few scoring chances that he did not bury. And he is just not a guy I like that much. And I texted you, I think, shortly after we did our top 10 prospects to watch episode. And I said, is Geeky going to be one of those guys who we're going to look back at these episodes in 3 years and go, how come we weren't talking more about Geeky? I feel pretty confident in saying, no, we won't be having that conversation.
I think you're right. Like, for fantasy value, for sure. Like, he might be a very important piece to a good hockey team, but he's a middle six player. He showed some great skill with some of those nice goals, nice shots. He was the trigger guy for Celebrini's fake one-timer.
He did have that one goal that was stupid. His release, where his feet were pointed to the
straight snapshot.
And then he put it to the other side of the net.
Yeah.
Hey, there we are. There's Devert's new house. I was wondering that was going to happen. And then this is a weird thing. And I feel we can have this conversation because I love him. And he's one of my favorite defense prospects. My biggest disappointment of the tourney was the defense. Did he win defenseman? No, he didn't. It was ASP, right? I was so underwhelmed by Lane Hutson. I thought he was going to come in and potentially lead the tournament in scoring. I thought he was going to be dominating every single shift because I know that the player Lane Hutson is not a guy who's afraid to go in and steal the show and carry the puck for 30 seconds in a shift and just be that guy. And I saw very, very little of that player in this tournament, and I don't like it.
there wasn't room for it, and it wasn't necessary. So it was just the style of play, their system wise. Like we said, with guys deferring to other guys, like the US is kind of the exception to that, where it's like there's always someone to defer to on that team, and it wasn't necessary for him to try to like one man show, play hero hockey out there. And so now, granted, he was lean, like we're talking fantasy, but like overall impression of the tournament, he did quite well. Like he was PK1, he was out there in
he got taken
situations
off PK1,
where
I think like it was case.
I think there was moments where they were like changing lines.
That was what I was wondering was it who was on the ice when they drew the penalty?
Yeah,
but I kept seeing him not out there for the first shift after on the power play.
Yeah. You saw the skill was there. It'll be interesting. Like when he did. So a couple times I did see him like one man show it and do the loop-de-loops around the net and all that. And then he would turn it over, and it's just like, that'll kill doing that for the rest of the game. And it's just like, it's where versus in college it works so much, and he's just, and the games aren't as crucial, so he's out there trying stuff too, and he has a bit more of a green light.
This tournament doesn't inhibit my enthusiasm about him. I just was really hoping to be beating my chest a bit more today than I am.
Well, you had Zeev.
Yeah,
so Zeev got you. And who else? Oh yeah, Haminaho.
Yeah, Zaboom was my big one for sure. And then we're not even going to get into this more. 95% of Canada disappointed me. Who on Canada were you happy with besides celebrating?
Celebrating
besides celebrating, who are you like? That was a good tournament for that.
Yeah, I know. I thought Rousseau played.
Sure, well. I'll give you the unsigned, undrafted goalie. Yeah.
The goalie,
I mean,
goalie
Henrik
played
Lundqvist
well.
liked them, so you can't.
I'm gonna sound like You know I love Matthew Wood. I would send you the wood
Every
stump
friggin' time. I don't
emoji
know who you love
every
more,
time. I thought he
Wood or
was
Wood.
underutilized. This was one of the problems I had with Canada's deployment of their team is that you. So one of the problems with Canada is there isn't like this chemistry that's built up with the team. Like all these other teams play these international tournaments all together all the time. With Canada, with the way the CHL works, these guys don't get to play together that often. So when you do have chemistry, you have to really lean on it. And so was Geeky with Savoy at all early on in the tournament?
I don't think so.
I don't remember. Wood and Celebrini were an awesome duo at the under 18s last year. And Wood was funny because it's like he put up three points in I think the game that we stomped. Was it Germany that we stomped? Or one of the teams that we whatever game he got 3 points. And then he barely played the next game. And it was just funny how I thought he played well. I thought when given the chance, and I would have went with Celebrini, Wood, and then another offensive player as a second line there. Rest of Canada, I thought that big defenseman was good.
Maverick Lemmer. Yeah, that's actually a great choice.
Yeah,
not for fantasy, but he does look like an NHL defenseman. He's huge. He's 6'6", 6'7".
Yeah, massive.
I liked his game a lot.
I'm really digging. I didn't think about this question before.
Well, it's too bad because we talked about this going into the tournament. I thought the most important players, period, for Canada were going to be Nuno and Molendyk. So to be missing those two and forcing all the defensemen on the roster outside of maybe Matejchuk into positions they probably wouldn't have otherwise been in is tough. But yeah, Lemeru played well. I'm hard pressed to think of anyone else who I was like, yeah, there it is.
Tough tourney. A lot of 18-year-olds. Big ice. That's not really our bread and butter. I think that's part of why us Canadians love. Well, we host every second
that's not
year. And
fair because America doesn't play on big ice, and they won the tournament.
Oh, yeah. But how often does America win the tournament? This is just super team, right?
But I mean, they adjusted. All right, those were our disappointments. We could go player by player on Canada. What was your favorite moment of the tournament, buddy? Which ping was it? I must say, I thought you were a Lekkermecki owner. I was thinking back to last year when you were involved in that get your pick back trade, and Lekkermecki was in the discussion. This whole time when you were talking about him, I was like, he's just jerking off his own guy. You weren't. You got Miro Heiskenan on that deal. So
yeah,
good for you. What was your favorite moment of the
good
tournament?
For me.
What do you remember in 5 years from now?
Mostly just like the overall dominance and spread of talent on the U.S. What was a good overtime moment?
It doesn't have to be. Here's mine. What do you think? I think it's the Leonard celebration.
I don't know.
No,
the monkey off the back,
Leonard kissing the blowing the kiss.
Leonard blowing the kiss.
Going to stick with me for a long time.
That was a sweet goal.
Very nice goal.
That was a really sweet goal.
It's that, or I mean, the McGroarty hit was big. The Gauthier winner against the Finns was a big one. Overall, I think that this question sort of encapsulates the tournament for me. It was a rather unmemorable tournament with fairly run-of-the-mill performances where no one came in and blew your socks off, other than maybe Celebrini, who we thought could do it but might not get the opportunity. It was really kind of a ho-hum. I love World Juniors. I love this tournament. But there weren't those all-time moments in this for me as a Canadian. But I don't think I'm saying that just because Canada wasn't there. I said on the podcast on Wednesday, I was really excited to see more US. US was the team I wanted to see the most of. So as a prospect guy, I got what I wanted. I got to see the two teams that I wanted to see the most of a lot. So I don't think that's it. I think it was just sort of I'll call it whelming. It was a whelming tournament for me. I was whelmed.
Yeah. I think, and for me, it's just that the U.S. came in and did what we all thought they would do, and that they were as good as they are as good as assumed. And they'll be back.
Real quick, give me one guy you're buying and one guy you're selling after the World Juniors.
One guy I'm buying and one guy I'm selling. You go first, as you.
I haven't thought about it at all.
Think of no?
I made these. We forgot we were doing the show. I made these notes as I was walking out the door.
I was the obvious one is Carey Mackey. I think there might be a spot where I could trade for him just because I'm still rebuilding. But that one's fairly obvious.
They can be obvious. I'm saying a guy who's. Well, yeah.
I'm going to say Otto.
Stenberg. Okay. And who are you selling?
Yeah. Selling.
You don't know.
I don't know who.
All right. It's funny.
Would be selling. Maybe Savoy.
It's totally Savoy.
Might be Savoy.
It's got to be Savoy or Dumais.
Yeah. The lack of finish.
Dumais,
Dumais. You're not going to get. You're not going to get value for hips. Dumais, but
he's getting both his hips looked at apparently. When he gets back. All right, for me, I am buying on. Wow, Zaboom. You can't buy him yet, but I really like that player. Let me start with who I'm selling. I am selling for the right price, Will Smith. I think he's still got that value out there of a guy who would go first overall in other drafts, and that is, I mean, they had fairly limited ice time, but Smith is a guy I'm thinking about selling. Certainly geeky if you own him. I don't. And then for buying, it's a tie for me. It's Nazar and Brindley. Dead air. Nazar's a good one because he's going to play with Bedard. And what I saw in this tournament was that Nazar can play the type of game that Bedard needs. His forechecking was unbelievable. His work along the boards was unbelievable. His ability to find guys was elite. You can't. If he was 4 inches taller, he would be the number one prospect in the league. Forget who he plays for. He'd be the guy I'd be going, if only Bedard had a guy like that. Nazar's a little undersized, but his game complements Bedard very, very, very well. He's the guy I'm buying. You know what? I'm going to knock Brindley off the list. It's Nazar. I've talked myself out of Gavin Brindley.
Cool.
Do you still owe me a guy?
Shoot. Owe you a guy?
You gave me a buy.
No, I did mine. Auto. I'm buying on Auto and selling on Savoy.
Real quick, I want to just recap our top 10 World Junior Championship fantasy prospects for NHL Upside. We had Celebrini at 1, Hudson at 2, Smith at 3, Gauthier at 4, Leonard at 5, Pyotr at 6, who we didn't talk about at all. That guy was underwhelming. Axel Sandin Pelika at 7, Kulich at 8, Dvorsky at 9, Zeev Byam at 10. How much do you change this list after the World Juniors? And I'm not saying let's figure out what the list looks like now, but how much does does it change it at all for you?
I might have time to throw Gabe Perreault in there. Add another American, and Yeah, because I think Perot's just his IQ level is just off the charts, like compared to Brindley and Nazar. They're both great players.
But wait,
too,
who does he bump
top
on
10.
this list for you? Who falls out of the top 10 to make room for Perot?
It might be like a Dvorsky or something,
that
or even Pyotr.
Opportunity for me,
but opportunity, yes,
for
that's
me keeps
a big
Pyotr
thing
on that list, and he's been good in the NHL.
And Pyotr is a super high IQ guy that I won't say he was on another level than his teammates. I thought his skating, he looked slow out there.
He looked tired.
I don't know, the adjustment from NHL to World Juniors, I don't know why, but it's hard.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense, but there is just this thing of like guys that I think we talked about this last time, or maybe it was on the Hacks, where when you play a level up, everyone does their job so much better. And then when you come back down, it's like, you're not where you're supposed to be, man.
Totally.
You know?
Yeah, for me, this list doesn't change much. I would agree Perot is probably the guy I think about putting there. But I think it's important, and this is where a good fantasy GM makes some money. I think it's important not to let a 9-day window ever impact your outlook on a player that you spent as long as you've been following them for. You can't let your opinion on that player change that much. That's why before this tournament, we said here are some guys you should be picking up and then selling after the tournament goes. And I thought we had some good picks in there. I think this list stays pretty much the same for me as well.
And that's fair, because like if you're going to take a guy like Perot, who's playing with a whole bunch of like first line future NHLers, versus Dvorsky, who's played second line for Team Slovakia, like it's not really a fair comparison for output in a quick tournament like that. So
all right.
But overall, like one guy we didn't talk about, Axel Sandin Pellikka, steady, looked great.
He started to look great
as the tournament went on. He was
pretty invisible the first few games.
Yeah. As a tournament, he was pretty non-existent, or like I said, just steady. Like during the round robin, during the when it came to the quarters and the medal rounds here,
he got better. He stepped up his game.
Really picked it up. Obviously, if you watch the games and like his coach in the Swedish league, like, man, talk about praise, like saying he could be one of the best players in the world.
I don't know about that, but yeah.
So, I was just like, easy, buddy. Like if I was Axel, I'd be like, come on, man, you're sewering me here.
Real quick, just to end the show, Devon and I tied in our positional players of the tournament. You won defenseman, and I won forward.
Kumbaya.
I think I got screwed.
Why, you thought Lane still should have won top D, man?
But I don't think Havlid was the goalie of the tournament. I think that for lack of better options, it should have been Augustine, because he took the job and won the gold and played well enough to win the gold. What did Havlid do?
Two shutouts
in the first and second game.
Round robin.
Get the hell out of here with that shit. And when it mattered, he lost, and he lost fairly convincingly. So,
okay, maybe I got screwed. That
that was a media home ice thing too. Huh? They were just trying to keep the.
Whoa! No media. No. Media home ice.
Legermecki only won it because it was home ice.
The media.
They were trying to cater to the home crowd, though. They were like, "Listen, we saw the kisses they blew. We don't want you guys to riot. Have the MVP, even though he didn't."
Yeah, but you don't honestly think Cutter was the MVP of the tournament, though? Do you think he was a top forward in the tournament? I don't think Axel Sandin Pellikka.
I don't think. I think they got it all wrong, to be honest. I think that Kulich was the most important player in the tournament to his team. I think that No defense. The defensemen who stood out the most to me
No one said.
were Lindstein, Zaboom. I really like Diamond's game a lot. Those were the defensemen who I was like, oh, hey, they are more than I even thought they were, especially in Steve Byam's case. Best forward of the tournament. To me, most valuable player should go to the guy who took his team to where it was, and it should have been Kulich. Because they don't medal without him. I don't even know if they make it to that game without him. So I think they got the whole darn list wrong. So we tied. But I will maintain I should have won because Augustine should have been goalie of the tournament.
I'll tell you, this whole tournament, I was rooting for my guys that I picked. Like it actually mattered.
It does matter. You're going to hear about it.
Jesus. It did. Bragging rights. Yeah.
Well, you know what? Okay. Here's why I did win.
Listening.
Here's why I won. You won best.
You explain
I have?
to me, yeah.
Okay.
No, explain why you
nailed defenseman of the tournament. I nailed forward, and your goalie pick played one game, and mine played the rest. So I won. I picked the right goalie.
Yeah, stupid.
Hey. I would say it's 1.1 to 1.
Jacob Fowler is going to be a
Do you
better
think so?
goalie in the future.
Augustine was pretty good. Like he's a steal for where they're going.
Fowler's amazing.
Okay. All right. Fowler's.
Yeah.
So you're not
Fowler
saying I'm wrong. You're saying you picked the better long.
No, I think they could have went either way. I think it was Augustine all the way. Like if Fowler would have. Like the problem is like some of those games the US was playing early in the tournament, they would only give up like 18 shots and then it was like a couple of the goals that Fowler let in was like a guy healed the shot, like he positionally was right there and the guy healed it and somehow went 5 hole and he was trying to shoot top shelf. Oh, I'm like, if he gets a shutout here, he might be the starter. And then Augustine's got the flu, and it's like, yeah, if he gets a shutout, he'll be starter the rest of the way. Yeah. And I will look so smart.
Well, you know what? Combined. All right, here's another reason I won. I said I wanted to go with Havlid, but I took Augustine for the drama factor between the two of us. So as far as I'm like, the tie goes to the runner. I'm the runner here. Like I picked the US. I'm the runner.
You're the
tie
runner.
Goes to me.
You had first pick.
Did I? You had.
Yeah, you took Cutter.
Then you passed on Hudson. First pick for Schmick. You were picking Lecker-Mackey anyways. Weren't you?
No, I wasn't. Anyways, I got the MVP of the tournament,
a bullshit
so it doesn't
award.
matter.
We weren't talking about
that's all that
tournament.
matters.
At no point were we discussing. Well,
we should have been.
Didn't. And you know what? Had we done MVP of the tournament, I don't think if you had first pick and you took Cutter and then I took Hudson and then you took Fowler and then I took Augustine and then we said, okay, and the bonus round is MVP of the tournament. I don't think you would have been like, well, since I picked Cutter to be best forward, I'm going to take Lecker-Mackey as you would have taken Cutter. Come on, you would have. We both said after this. So wait, the MVP wasn't the best forward of the tournament? Who picks those guys differently? I have no idea.
No idea.
You're agreeing with me.
Tournament directors.
Well, for our
all the way, and Cutter had something to say about it to Lecker-Mackey.
For our listeners out there, if you're interested, reach out to us at Dynasty Puck on Twitter and let us know who you think won our little bet here. If it's a tie, you can say you think it was a tie, but I think you'd be silly to think it was a tie. Thanks for tuning in.
Or who do you think was the tournament MVP?
Yeah, tell us. Yeah, tell us.
No,
yeah, we'd love to hear it. We would love to hear all this because it's all a good discussion. And
I don't think Lecker-Mackey was a bad pick for MVP. I thought he had a great tournament.
Sure, but the definition of the award, most valuable player, Sweden still would have won the silver without Lecker-Mackey. Yeah, they would have. Stenberg would have moved up a line, and he would have crushed it. They still would have, they would have won that medal without him. I don't think that that team's anywhere without Kulich. that's like Swiss Chalet was the only other player who kind of stepped it up for them. So
No.
oh yeah,
What's his name?
And
Malovsky. He had a point every game.
He was facing second competition. Doesn't count. He was facing second pairs.
God, we must both be really tired. We're delirious and just dragging this on.
Thanks for listening. Reach out. Let us know what you thought at Dynasty Puck on Twitter. We'd love to hear from you. Buddy, happy World Juniors. Until this time next year, no more hour and 40-minute episodes like this. This is ridiculous. We even had to cut our trade section. We would have pushed 2 hours today.
Jesus. Here,
we never do. That's what makes the show so good. We should just call it a couple guys with nothing to talk about. That's what the show should be. I like the name Puck Dynasty, but that might be more accurate. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the World Juniors as much as we did. And next week, I think we are maybe going to have a look at our lists from the summer. What do you think? Should we do that next week?
Oh.
It's going to be a slow prospect week. I think next week we look at our top 50 prospects. We're having a conversation about it. I think the re-ranking is probably an episode or two. Like I've been saying all along, I'm not sure our prospect list needs that much revising. Our under 23 needs some work. Again, it's been 4 months, so I don't know how much I want to move guys. Lucas Reichel needs to drop way down on our prospect list. A couple guys need to move up, but at the heart of it, there's not a lot of movement in the top 30 that we did, in my opinion. So we'll see. Stay tuned. Next week, we might be redoing a prospect list. We've got a big one.
Can't miss that one.
You got an hour and 45 minutes to kill to listen to us jerking off our own prospects. It'll be great.
That's that's under a trip from Edmonton to Calgary,
right.
or Saskatoon to
Regina. Four
Perfect.
times if you're driving from Regina to Edmonton. So, the amount of knowledge that would really sink in. But World Juniors are in the books. There's been enough of the season. I think we should do it. Stay tuned. Next week, we'd love to talk to you some more. Thanks for having us again to the Hockey Hacks. As always, we are happy to be here and talking to you folks.
It's 2024. Can you believe it?
What's that got to do with anything?
Isn't that nuts? I know. It's just wild. It's the new year, but it's just wild. It's 2024.
Here's what year it is.
I know. I'm losing.
Thanks for listening, folks. Enjoy the rest of your week, and hopefully the World Juniors hangover doesn't get you too down, like I'm sure it will both of us. Thanks for listening. I'm Ryan. This was Evan. Puck Dynasty.